Full volume, try not to drop my phone. Scotch tape, scissors, duct tape, and all. Welcome back. Artist Journal, July 9th, 2025. Broadcasting from the non-space of the mind. My name's Adrian Pocobelli. Sailing forward into the rain. Rainy skies below us, my friend, in our pirate ship in the sky. Going on more than 400 episodes. We have traveled many places, many islands we have stopped at. Many in Greece, which are absolutely delightful. Where have we been in Greece? I guess Anafi. There's a secret tip for everybody. It's by Santorini, but it's like the bohemian version of Santorini. I shouldn't be saying these things, but I say them here, my friends, as a little reward for coming back and watching this show once again. And forgive me. I am just getting everything together. So another day, another masterpiece, Kareem Sappa. This came out a month ago. Let's see, June 23rd. And let's hope that it still loads. Let me get the audio. Super rare. The bidding has started. You have 5 hours. I think 7 hours as I say this. So maybe 5 hours from when you watch this, or even less. Great music. Love the music. What is it like? I'm tempted to say like Outside by Bowie, but it's not. But it's kind of got a similar vibe. What is it like? You know what Bowie captured really well? Very, very cool. I mean, the reason I say Bowie, you hear the drum and bass, he kind of had his like jungle drum and bass thing in the late 90s. And you hear it on Outside. And it brings up another actually really interesting topic, slight digression here. Which is, and I'll just say a couple of sentences, but I have been thinking about it. I was thinking about it last night, actually, when I woke up in the middle of the night. This is a 2-minute video here, so maybe it's opportune to tell this story as this plays. But I was thinking about, U2, and how they were the kings of the world in 1990 with Achtung Baby and the Zoo TV tour, and then they put out Zoo TV. But it was like the tarot cards, it was like the cyclicality of fortune and fate, and then all of a sudden, as kings of the world, all of a sudden they were completely, I would argue, for lack of a better term, undermined by the techno revolution. And I would argue it actually created a identity crisis for the band. Speaking of David Bowie also embracing jungle, people kind of don't really talk about this. I've never seen anybody actually talk about it. I'm sure some people do. But this kind of identity crisis that rock had when techno rose, because it was so exciting. This fin du siècle, end of the century, in a sense, using it in the best possible way, postmodern, this looping music, sounding like a variation of who is the, classical composer. Come out to show them. I'm sure someone knows. Come out to show them. Those loops that influenced, I think, Philip Glass. So all to say, it created an identity crisis, and I would argue my evidence for this identity crisis, then we'll get back to the head-turning work. Another day, another masterpiece over here. But the final piece of evidence on this identity crisis that happened in the rock world in the 90s, my surreal art show here, was that a discotheque. That was the pop album, which was really, for people that know U2's work, was really the beginning of the end, or at least we could say a second phase in their career began then. And you can hear discotheque. It's like they're trying to embrace it, but they're trying to retain what they had. And unfortunately, and this can happen to artists, in a sense, their crisis of confidence was, I would argue, unmerited. because their music was still good. But at the time, it felt like it was completely, in a sense, outdated overnight to a certain degree. But what they, in retrospect, and it's easy to say these things in retrospect, but what they should have done is kind of kept on with their edginess. They lost the edge, one could argue. They should have kept on with their edginess and just released dance remixes, as they were already doing in the wonderful singles from Actung Baby, the B-sides. And as they were doing with Zuropa. It was Zuropa, the album. So all to say, Kareem Sappa's, and I want to say it's not just the visuals here, it's the music. I mean, look at what it does to me. Look at what it does to me. So we better stop that music immediately. Okay, so finally, now that we can turn the music off and discuss this without being captured by kind of inspiration from music. What do we have here? We have a pixel art factory structure, but what it looks like is some sort of sound rendering, like visual sound editing software, or whatever it is, technique, process is being applied to the screens, so to speak, in here, making this very unique, almost hybrid work of what could be, I guess we could call it generative art. Right? Some sort of programmatic or algorithmic art where it's like you put in the music and you start getting out different results, and then Kareem Sappa taking those results and maybe pixelating them, adding another layer of transformation. It seems to be that's what's here. It's pretty amazing when you start doing stuff like this. It starts to turn into a kind of alchemy, as we see here. Nothing quite like this, is there? We're kind of back to, I'm sure would do just fine. Thank you very much in your local art institution. Here's another one. This one is 1st of June and similar principle. Pretty exciting work. I've seen a lot of, a fair amount, not a ton, of kind of works that incorporate music and in this kind of way. There's something about this work which really is it's got some real excitement to it. Let's put it that way. Could be the music itself as well, which is quite good. So, we're very cool, selling for a mere $816. A mere $816 for that work here. This work over here, let's look at the activity. Auction started by Kareem Sappa. Is this waiting for a bid? So, waiting for a bid over there. Here is one more, and let's see. This is number 1 of 3, and this was minted May 12th. We shall see. I'm on phone internet already. I'm looking forward. I have given notice on my apartment. And so October 1st, we're going to have a different... Maybe I'll bring the bookshelf with me. But probably not. We're going to start having different backgrounds here. Maybe we'll have beautiful cliffs of Taormina or wonderful streets of Paris. We shall see. Now, this isn't rendering super clearly here. Okay, there we go. A little bit more experimental on this one. Again, has kind of institution, and I mean museum institution, written all over it, doesn't it? Just pretty awesome work, and let's just see what happened here. $840, modest, with a modest bid of 0.33 ETH, and walking away with Pattern Mixer, a gorgeous work. Another gorgeous work from Kareem Sappa. Let me close these tabs here, and let's continue. So super rare. Putting this out, bid now, and audio... Instabilizer is an audio-visual piece based on real-time algorithmic composition. It is the third work in the Sound Machines collection. So that was the first one we looked at, where sound and image are tightly interwoven through procedural systems. The system continuously improvises using digital and analog synthesis with visuals reacting to parameters like pitch, amplitude, and harmonic content, while certain graphic structures simultaneously generate control signals that influence the sound engine. Kareem Sappa, born 1985 out of Turkey, visual artist and musician based in the Netherlands. He created pixel-based works informed by the visual logic of early computers, combining algorithmic processes with manual animation. His practices embraces self-imposed constraints such as limited color palettes and low resolutions. I'm not a fan of but I mean, this is probably accurate. To shape a precise rhythmic language rooted in machine aesthetics. I don't want to lose the audience here. And musical structure. Anyways, fabulous. Another day, another masterpiece out here. A System of Relations. Interesting title. Thank you for all the support last episode. Musty Art. Great video as always. Thank you so much for featuring Spoon and Batman. Yeah, so a double header from Musty Art. The Spoon was rad. And I love the Batman, too. What a surprise when we zoom in on the Batman. Thank you for the comment. To Toby Egglesfield. I love that you're still going, man. It's testament to your love of art and authentic hopes for this medium. How is Tezos going these days? I'd say pretty darn well, in a sense. I recently actually had an interview, and I was basically saying, what's changed was the question in the last, since you started doing this program. And I said, weirdly, the only thing that really has changed is my conviction has grown stronger because the artists are now, 3 years later, that much better. The artists continue to make work. And as long as the artists continue to make work, I mean, at a certain point, so it's quite interesting. So it's going quite well is what I would say. I would say also, the market is very resilient right now. It is very resilient. There's a lot of excitement. It's what's interesting as well is it's never disappeared. Even at the depths of the bear market, let's say in late 2022, was it early 2023? I always just said, what bear market? This work continues to sell. It sells for reasonable prices. What bear market? That we had here in Tezos. So, and now those artists that, have put in the work that have been around they're kind of reaping the rewards, aren't they? There is just a huge appetite for, if you can put out great art, there is a huge appetite for it. So it is exciting, is how I'd describe it. Johanna Kiemeyer, who is in Greece, my good friend, artist friend out of Berlin here, who is in Greece. Great to hear from you. Johanna, great artist. Burnsy Witch, merci. Great work. I believe that's L'Inquisiteur. And we have another work by L'Inquisiteur this episode. And also on X, thank you for the support. Pixel Lord, it's really good show again. Such a delightful feeling to see how your beautiful mind connects the dots and the whole thought process on the first artist and his works. I completely understand the way he thinks in the process. I think I felt it much better after your explorations. This is very important to discuss what's hidden. I think for me, it's the best way to look at the art and explore it like an unknown planet. Listening to your thoughts on top of it rather than just scrolling fast through the timeline with different artworks. Yeah, it's kind of interesting kind of thought, hey, and thank you for the very nice comments. This notion of pausing, in a certain way, we have so much that is, scrolling past our visual field or just like entering our vision and passing. It's kind of interesting. Another way of kind of considering this show, which I've never even really thought about it this way, is a whole bunch of pauses, right? It's like, let's stop here and then let's stop here. And, so thank you for the comment, PL. Pixel Lord, great to hear from you. August Ground, swimming in the Kool-Aid. At least aware of the food coloring in the water. Hilarious. Yes, indeed, swimming in the Kool-Aid here, not just drinking it. Contrast is the magic where beauty happens. Dropping gems, P. Thank you, August Ground, and I appreciate your good vibes and encouragement. Seba Sestero, have a great week. Thank you. Out of Argentina. Great to hear from you. Wonderful illustrator, Karma Cowboy. Best show on blockchain art by a long stretch. Looking forward every time. Well, that is wonderful to hear. There may not be too many shows. I mean, I guess there are certain things, but I can't think. I mean, maybe there are. So maybe I should just I'm kind of one of those. I don't tend to watch. There's kind of this old school sort of thing in broadcasting where you don't watch or listen to the competition, so to speak. I didn't even really realize, and maybe you're talking more just generally, but I try and avoid it. And there's some really good stuff out there, I'm sure, but I generally just, because I'm worried that it'll influence my discussion. And so I don't, so yeah, that's part of the reasoning behind it. So anyways, I really appreciate that. It's great to hear, Karma Cowboy. Lily Illo, I have the biggest smile. Thank you so much for showing such a dying fall, Adrian. Yeah, very cool AI video by Lily Illo. Awesome to hear from you, Lily, out of Australia. Jan Lucas Magone, new week. Indeed, my friend. Regno Di Blocchi, GM, great to hear from you. Good morning. Oblivion Fields, great show, Poco. Love the opener. If you're looking for generative or code-based art with some soul, check out Federo Peza. Think Federo Peza, I believe on ETH, on Tezos and ETH. His series with dots reminds me of Baldassari's Dots on Faces, and here you see a little. We'll see if it loads up here. Indeed. Yes, so this seems almost like a hybrid between generative, but maybe it's just pure generative art. Interesting. Cool. Thanks for the link. Heck, How to Win Friends and Influence People is one of my favorite books. Indeed, this is a classic. I call it a timeless work on human nature. How to Win Friends by Dale Carnegie. If you haven't read it, you will learn a few things. Indeed. And if you manage people and you haven't read it, you should. So I totally agree. As I'd said here, if I was making a curriculum, which I think will be my final project, that's kind of in my mind, shall I grow to an old age? That's kind of what I want my final project to be, is to make a curriculum. And so How to Win Friends and Influence People, about 14, 15 years old, grade 10. How much better would the world be if we got all the 15-year-olds reading How to Win Friends and Influence People? Nicholas Dietrich, great show, Adrian. Very important topics discussed. So often I chat to new people who'd be interested in buying digital art, but the sticking point is always the crypto wallet. If only it was as easy as buying on Amazon. It really is. And and I don't even know really the way around that, because I think part of the reason why we spend so much on the art is also because it's crypto. Like, if this was coming out of my bank account, I don't think I would have the collection that I have in terms of what I've spent. But since it was crypto and it was kind of this magic internet money, and it's like, oh, I just sold some work, now what am I going to buy? Then I'm just a little bit more enthusiastic. So I also wonder, is it a feature or is it a bug? I completely agree with you. It's a bug in terms of onboarding. I do wonder if it's a feature in terms of the people who are already onboarded and they go, oh, well, I have some crypto. It's 20 Tezos. They're not thinking, oh, I have $10.55 US and I just bought groceries for $50. So it's kind of like this parallel world financially, but I completely agree with you. And of course, we were riffing off of Raul Pal and that actually quite pertinent statement by him. Little Cakes, hooray, Kazuhiro Ehira, main featured. Indeed, the headline of the newspaper, The Imagination, wonderful work, and actually looks like got some bids actually on a couple of the works on ETH. So wonderful news. Big shout out to Cakes and Kazuhiro. Hen Collector, Tezos far from perfect, but hasn't the solution been staring us in the face? Keep things simple and collecting stays enjoyable. While object drives right now, Hen origination and original intentions matter. Powerful communities and clean experiences only come from clean intentions, in my opinion. And good point. Good point. And Hen Collector, great to hear from you. And as I said, I think one of the greatest things that Object has done, and it's a testament to the founders, is they have stayed out of their own way. And I think the way they were able to stay out of their own way is they made it about the art and providing a great experience for artists and collectors. And that seems to be the focus. We're kind of back to values. Because what we saw on OpenSea and the getting rid of the royalties, or Blur, which just turned it into this farming thing, or so many other, we saw it with Foundation, where it's like, no, actually, we want to turn it into Rodeo, where it's going to be 17 cents or whatever you're making on it, 30 cents per image. All those other platforms, or so many, let's put it that way, of the other platforms made it about something else other than the art and the collecting and the experience for those two groups. And I think they've suffered the consequences. In a sense, like Object is standing the test of time, isn't it? So they have done very well, in a sense. You can truly see them as having a big, an important role that they've played in the ecosystem since 2020, 2021, I suppose it was, when I think they launched right after Hen went down, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know the exact history there. But they've played a very important role in keeping things accessible using the Tezos blockchain. There's talk about a token coming out, and they didn't release one. And I actually think that was a great move, because there was talk, and maybe they still will. And, the financial side of myself is going, please release a token with all the work I've collected on there. Surely I'll get something. But on the other hand, I feel like, would it be good? It's sort of like artists releasing tokens, like it's kind of a double-edged sword, and there's a lot of downside that can happen. So anyways, great to hear from you, Hen Collector. And I mentioned, and also replying to the staying out of their own way. So true, one of the hardest things for people to do. Having the confidence and conviction to stay out of your own way bodes well for Object's future. I also think them making a conscious decision to avoid ETH noise has allowed them to stay focused. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, one could argue there is still an opportunity for Object going multi-chain. That is, because in a sense, if ETH platforms really, I don't understand, someone was pointing out, maybe it was Jedi Wolf, saying how OpenSea should look at Object.com, like, why aren't they incorporating a lot of the design principles from Object.com? And thankfully not, and I'm glad they're doing their own thing from an originality point of view. But it does make you wonder. I mean, you could argue that Super Rare's redesign perhaps had an influence from Object. Interestingly. So all to say, great points. Great to hear from you, Han. Vanessa VM, morning, Poco. Nice pieces. Thank you. Great to hear from you, Pedro Jose GM. Great to hear from you, my friend. August Ground, unapologetically process-oriented. Indeed. I'm glad I felt like I got 3 hours of sleep there, which is not typical for me at all because of the green tea. I haven't had it since, by the way. You know what's interesting, just very, very quickly, is green tea. I always sort of shied away from tea because I thought it was weaker than coffee. But that green tea, and I use the word with reservation, high that I got was like 10 times, felt way more powerful than a cup of coffee. So it kind of, I haven't even dared touch it since. Whereas before I was like, I can have this at 9 p.m. and it's not going to do anything. So yes, indeed. Thank you for the comments, and I'm glad you're enjoying the show. Ilya Bluesnets, thanks for the review. You are welcome. Rad work, my friend. August Ground, 10 metaphorically, referring to the amount of artists that are the masters, so to speak, of the scene. And of course, we're speaking metaphorically. Like the Chinese idea of 10,000 things, there are obviously more things and more masters on the chain game. Indeed. And I mean, it's quite interesting, though. Like, because I would never want to do this in public, as we saw with 6529, and that was my concern afterwards. I was like, is this like putting out like a top 30 and then basically through omission, basically saying everybody else is irrelevant, right? And because there was this thing like, we should, 6529 at some point, maybe 6 to 8, 10 months ago was saying, we should have a list of the 30 most important artists, right? And so, but if you do it on your own, in your head, and you look at like just great artists, and that'd be more how I would, approach that rather than some public list, because you probably do have 30 favorites or whatever it is. I mean, think of the list. It must be like, maybe there's 100 of like, just like artists who you love, interestingly. I mean, that is how rich this is. And so, again, let's just say 10 metaphorically. Like the Chinese idea of 10,000 things, there are obviously more things and more masters on the chain gang. So thank you for the understanding, August. Ed Woods, thanks for the feature of red wine, red wine. Much appreciated. You're welcome, my friend. We have another one. Cool combination of text and image. Ramina, keep shining. Great to hear from you, Ramina. And also, Mina TK, hello, please talk about my artwork at the foundation. I assume you mean at foundation. Just post in the community. You post once a week is the rule. So feel free to post there, and I will see it. I brought in a couple of works from the community this episode. So I regularly, not every show, but regularly, I'll pick works from there. So I always try and keep that open. That is why the community is there. At least at this point, that is the main function. Nostalgia Unlimited, great picks this week. I can't believe it's already been a week since the last one. Well, the reason you feel that way is because it's only been Friday. And I post that on Monday. So it goes Monday, Wednesday, Friday over here when things are on a regular schedule. Hen Collector, and if intentions are clouded, experience is clouded. Few more thoughts here. So, okay, so also referring to Raoul Pal's interesting rant/desperate plea. Is it any surprise that chains built primarily on financialization without community ethos around art end up with fragmented products? It's inevitable. Products and communities mirror the infrastructure they're built on and the teams that build them. So I will slowly scroll here in case you want to read everything. We don't have time to go through everything, but I think it's kind of another way of saying, I suspect, values. And what do you value? What's more important, the financial gain or the art? And so, now what's interesting though, in the long term, once time has, done its magic, once time has stirred the witch's brew, so to speak, then I'd argue actually by making the art the primary concern that actually you will have the best financial outcome. I would argue. In the short term, going after the financial, going, okay, this is the latest collection to go crazy or the latest artist to go wild, may be the short-term way to go. But the long-term, time, we're already seeing it from 2020, 2021, right? Like we saw it with the generative art, and you could argue, do people have the same feelings? Is there the same sentiment that we have in the art market today as we had in 2021? It's like, so it's always, the wheel of fortune turns, as they say. Thank you again, Hen, for posting that. And indeed, agreed. Wojak 5185 makes some very astute observations about the nature of the gen art scene. Yes, Wojak, great to hear from you. And yes, that was a interesting comment. And Isun, great to hear from you. Or Mira. Strano, could you prompt this? So an interesting topic question that Pocobelli and Absurdity were discussing here on Artist Journal. Now, so kind of an interesting question. Yes, so Strano putting out a piece, and that is an interesting question if you could prompt that. It doesn't look very easy. And so and I believe we looked at this comment, this was on last show. Indeed. So thank you, Strano, for tagging me there. And look at this. I don't think I've ever gotten 50,000. I've gotten like 30-some thousand views. So, yes. So a nice combination. So wonderful. Thank you for posting me on that. Maybe I got a few followers in the process. 50,000 views. Great work. Excuse me. Let us continue. So here, this is quite interesting. I want to just zoom to the end of the article here. So after 30 years in business, Tim Bloom of Bloom & Poe, I guess it's been Bloom the last few years, is sunsetting his gallery, pursuing new model. So a major contemporary art gallery company organization is shutting down but transforming. And so this is quite interesting. Tim Bloom, who helped grow the careers of artists like Yoshitomo Nara and Takashima Murakami, is stepping away from his gallery, which will no longer operate with a traditional gallery model. The dealer told Art News, The Bloom said the decision was driven neither by financial strain nor a midlife reinvention, but by burnout. This is not about the market. This is about the system. Interestingly, he was referring to the whole architecture of contemporary gallery life, the ever-expanding web of fairs, openings, obligations, and expectations that he said have been growing more demanding. It's not working, and it hasn't been working even when it looked like it was. So I don't want to read the whole thing, but at the end, there's a couple of... So I wanted to... Actually, I did want to highlight this as well. Bloom said he's pursuing, quote, a more flexible model, one that will involve special projects, collaborations, and what he described as longer-term visions still in development. Sounds like, you know what it sounds like to me? Sounds like he's not against the physical space, but this idea that you're going to have physical spaces that regularly that you maintain, I think he's done with that, interestingly. And at the end, here it is. Here it is. The market has grown sluggish, but Bloom was adamant that the idea of winding down operations had been percolating for years. Quote, "This isn't because Basel sucked," he said. Quote, "but it did suck. It was like a thunderclap, confirmation of everything I've been feeling for years." He said he sold 85% of his booth in advance, but the fair seemed to confirm his need to do things differently. Quote, "We didn't have a single meaningful conversation Thursday through Sunday. It was profound." That's pretty damning, isn't it? So, quite interesting. You know, again, a question you can ask yourself, or that I ask myself when I read this, is where's the intellectual energy? You know, where is the energy is another way of putting it. So that's pretty much the takeaway there. Hen Collector, I want the scraps, the iterations, and not quite finished work. The not quite finished work, the historical artifacts. It is not just about the masterpieces. Sometimes the richness of the journey is more powerful, giving me an opportunity as a collector to be part of your evolution. This is quite interesting. It's a very interesting, almost tempting to call it dilemma, that digital artists have, is what to release. But I think a nice kind of carefully selected curation, maybe of the sketch, if there is a sketch, you know, it's an interesting question. And so I imagine at some point, we don't see a ton of the works in progress or the iterations or, you know, because again, if there are a million iterations, if you make digital art, you can say, well, why this piece and not that way? They both work. As I say with design, there are right answers and wrong answers, but there are many right answers. You know, and so here, what happens when you have more than one right answer? You know, so it's interesting. So interesting point from Hen Collector. Brian McAllister, I believe, is a co-founder of Object.com. I've been collecting art digitally for over 4 years. Every time I collect, it still feels like magic. And indeed, it does, and I would agree, and it's a testament. I would agree with this, and I resonate with that. Sabato has Brain Rot Nation has a new show on Object.com, curation, with these artists here: Agnes Evergrace, Kenneth Zapata, Mike Ben Amar, Salawaki, Cedar Plank, David Noon, No Hygiene, Subnet, Sky Goodman. July 10th. So here is the write-up, though. I've noticed that for the most part, there is little crossover between the Web3 art scene and the art I see on TikToks and Reels. And I don't see a ton, I'm curious, my curiosity was piqued by what that is referring to. This is troubling to me, because if we aim to be a vanguard of some sort, we should be engaging with the zeitgeist instead of rehashing modernism. This is an interesting question. So let's continue. Brain rot was the word of the year in 2024, according to the Oxford English Dictionary. It's quickly become the memetics of the roaring 20s, borrowing from glitch art, AI art, postmodernism, and the dismal world of digital marketing. Brain rot is tailor-made for algorithmic consumption, and as such questions this mode of engagement and its long-term effects on individual cognition and society at large. So I think what brain rot is about is... I don't want to, is this basically, so TikTok, there is art on TikTok and Reels. Does it reflect brain rot? And is that good? Are we commenting on brain rot? So I'm a little, I'm not exactly sure what is happening here. I'm not sure if it's a criticism, a celebration, maybe both of brain rot. Diggy D also was wondering, so all to say, looks interesting. We can take a look at some of the works there. Next episode, Retro Manny, building up them layers in Aspirate. Guess which 90s hero I used to reference the run cycle? You know, this just looks like Tom Cruise to me. So there we go. For those that are wondering, Aspirate is a great pixel art software if you're looking to get started in pixel art. I don't use it, but I think it looks like the Photoshop of pixel art. Some people use Photoshop, by the way, but that's a little trickier. FX Hash, Dioramas by Gallo and Stuff opens July 9th on Base. So FX Hash is on Base. I'm kind of curious, and I wanted to bring it up. Someone showed a chart of eBoy on FX Hash. Like, are they going to be able to get the this kind of meme? I don't know if it's a meme coin. This artist coin to be worth something and to work, like, because we've seen many attempts at trying to get artist coins to work in the last year. We've seen it with Zora, and so I think eBoy will be a great case, and I'm going to try and track that, because if eBoy can't do it, then I'm not sure who has a nice, following and broad following and widely respected, because if eBoy can't do it, then we'll see. But eBoy seems to be doing well. Anyway, here's another one, Gallo and Stuff. Looks like a pretty cool generative art series here on FX Hash. Again, on Base, so expanding. And Siri getting triggered there. This is cool too, Pen Plotter by Emre Maidan. And this is just a still image, but look at how detailed you can get. Quite a gorgeous pen plot here. So very cool. Here, Deadly Yuka, we are looking for someone to compose music for our game. Currently in production, I saw a flying saucer. DM is available. Please let us hear your music. So we've been seeing this develop here. We're making a game in which a man who lost his wife goes in search of a UFO that shouldn't exist. So I love that. In a sense, if the UFO shouldn't exist, maybe my edit would, maybe we should remove the flying saucer. That's pretty cool, though. I love the driving part, and I love kind of like the almost Southwest kind of vibe. Even in the palette, you see it here. It looks like Arizona. And continuing on, I thought this was hilarious. Yuri, he came and took it. I came to a meme contest on 6929, is it 6529 or 6929 IO, and took 161st place, the last one so far. So I think we've seen this. And here, I guess, 6529, 6929. Hilarious. Okay, so, and here, I guess, is the evidence. So a Pepe on a crucifixion. I guess that wasn't popular. I think, but it almost shows a bit of a divide. 161st, if you can see up there. It almost shows the divide, though, between the chains, the culture of the chains, because Yuri J sells his work for, top dollar here on Tezos, so it's quite interesting. As we move into the work, Martin Bruce, look at this, 420, aw heck, putting in a bid for $224. Storm versus Test Drive. Another day, another masterpiece here. Martin Bruce. Look at this. So combining and almost disintegrating the Test Drive works and almost seeming to, use ideas from the Four Seasons. And love the angles here. Even what looks like a broken windshield. And I'm kind of back to Max Ernst's garden airplane traps. I think they have different names. That's what Ballard used to call them. These works by Max Ernst. Let's see if we can find them. Garden airplane traps. I've mentioned them several times, even though we don't have a ton of time. But I've mentioned them several times, so you know what I'm talking about here. Again, I'm kind of back to, once I get good internet, I think I will start the Substack where we just go into stuff like garden airplane traps, Max Ernst, and there are a whole series. And here, you see kind of like plants, and I guess you could loosely say technology here. It's pretty loose, but where you almost see organic and inorganic matter combining here. And you could argue, I think what Ballard was getting at here, the genius of Ballard is, look at a car and a body colliding against a car, a troubling imagery, to put it mildly, inorganic and organic matter. But looking at it philosophically, so let's just leave it there. There's too many tragedies out there for me to really go too in depth on that, unless we're discussing specifically, novels like Crash. Then we can go into what this a moral tale, I'd actually argue, is, but all that context needs to be said. Anyways, let's get back to Martin Bruce, who's killing it at $224 with an auction with time to go in this another masterpiece here that he's doing here on a daily basis. Flower vase picked up by FamTez for 450 Tezos, or $238. You gotta love it. You gotta love, artists making good money. It's, and it's not that long ago. I remember it was in February when I was in Saskatchewan. When I managed to pick up a Martin Bruce one of one at auction that nobody was paying attention to for 70 Tezos, which was probably like 40 or 50 bucks at the time. So it's a testament to how quickly things can happen out here. It's exciting. Now, it is a boom-bust market, so you have to, so ride the good times while they're there. And right now we have a great market. Let's continue. Oblivion Fields, who of course I follow. I've just collected Map by Mishi Asu. I think this is an older work, but I loved it. What a beautiful piece here by Mishi Asu. And here are some new ones. Shadows. I'm not sure, is this an edition of 4, sold out at $770? So cool, kind of, again, experimental, look at this, digital art. Fun, cool digital art by Mishi Asu. Just original colors and everything. This is another recent work, kind of mystifying work. I mean, this almost looks like shamanistic type of imagery here, interestingly, to speculate. It kind of has that overall vibe. Under the Cloud. Edition of 1 sold for 22 Tezos, or 12 bucks. So pretty reasonable price there. Here is Nuv 1914, another artist who just out of nowhere is now selling for 100 Tezos, which is $53. And I love this piece. Kind of has a Yves Tanguy kind of feel, I believe. Or is it Magritte? I'm thinking of Magritte, actually. Magritte, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get the images. Magritte pipes underneath. Let's see if that brings us anything. No, it's bringing a pipe. Yes, we're getting killed here by the pipe word. Underneath metal. Just finally, and if we don't find it, we're getting closer. Yeah, I think we're going to have to leave it. There are certain kinds of works by Magritte where it's almost like the underlying, why do we see none of them? Where the underlying reality starts to bleed through. It is Magritte, I'm sure of it. Anyways, kind of a reminder of Magritte here. Artie Hand's picking this up for 100 Tezos, $53, and just more innovation here. This is wonderful. These pipes here coming through, or whatever they are, and this edgy gradients here. Totally original digital paintings by Nuv 1914 out of Buenos Aires. Tuve tus palabras perdidas. So not sure what that means. Another interesting piece picked up by FamTez for 100 Tezos, or $52. So you release a work every day at $52 US. You're doing pretty good. Now, interestingly, so we have a new episode of Journal of Sleep. Let's actually enjoy this episode first. The carrot head. Terrifying. Look at those glitches. good. The tooth in the mouth. Truly surreal. I mean, the music. I mean, so much more entertaining than like surrealist films. So another home run for Kurt Hustle Collective. Wild, funny, cool, well executed. A new episode of Journal of Sleep. This is episode 5. And that beautiful static. I mean, amazing. So this brings up an issue, though, which is you're getting people buying multiples, like Centero, Jaguar, Tech, and then they, list it for more than 10 times. So this is, and then also El Canario. So, so it's just to flip it, right? So it's kind of like, as artists, this kind of happened to my work, and to a lesser extent, but basically the same thing, whereas bought by flippers, and then it prices out people that actually want to collect your work rather than just make a profit off of you. So it does bring up an interesting issue where, do you take offers? Do you hold back a certain amount of pieces? If anybody knows any other strategies, feel free to leave a comment, and I will share them here and read them. Because now, basically you have people who don't want to hold on to the work and are trying to make, 10x more. 50. So, maybe it's too cheap also, the price that Kurt Hustle Collective is selling for. It's kind of sad you have to raise the price, because otherwise people will, what is it called? Arbitrage, to a certain degree. Haiti Rocket Dreams. Love the edge here. And of course, Skeletor, some kind of meme-esque content or meme-ish content. Dreams. Love the rendering of Dreams there too. Classic work here by Haiti Rocket, and sold at 23 Tezos each. Super classic. And another super classic, Belchebu by The Myth. Gorgeous work. I believe I picked this up this morning. If memory serves. Look at how beautiful these edges are. So, and look at that expression. The poetry of The Myth. Right in front of you. Look at the reds. Fabulous, fabulous artists. Look at the hair. Beautifully rendered. Look at these perfect clouds. And maybe this is a color. Maybe it's a cloud. Maybe it doesn't matter. And so, trademark sky there. And then this wonderful. It looks like, wow. That is probably like the material of the, as you see here in the blue, of the, of the clothing. What a work. What a work, because at first you think it's the same blue sky, but that's just a different color blue on the cloth. And look at that mask, Myth original, so stunning work by The Myth. Ridiculously available. There are still 9. I think I picked up one, so it's like 8, so I can't believe it. And one of the heroes, I might add, of the Tezos, art scene, I might add, Free Myth, as you see here, Tornado Rodriguez with The Myth, on-chain artwork. So a myth mask in a tornado jar, awesome. And there's even the clouds and the little homunculi. So that looks like a combination of a collaboration. Hegel Art Collector picking it up for 75 Tezos. Nice collect. Here's L'Inquisiteur. And what does that say? Le meurtre est l'ultime échec de la parole. Murder is the ultimate check of speech. Interesting, if I'm translating that correctly. And this, Bellerophon? I'm not sure who this is. We're going to find out. Hopefully, L'Inquisiteur is watching. Look at how good these are turning out. Look at that. Okay. Look at how, the big square. It just goes to show, I think this started off as kind of fun, but then the market really, kind of latched onto it. And now it's kind of like this, homemade art tool the waffles draw that Santiago or Time put together, look at how good of a tool this is. And would you be able to make this work without this software? So it's quite interesting here. There's a lot to think about, actually, in this situation, which is, here's an artist comes and then just starts using a new software. Something I've mentioned here many times. If you hit a wall, start using a new software. And then starts using a new, not to say L'Inquisiteur hit a wall, but okay, just starts using a new software, and all of a sudden you're getting this beautiful stuff going on here. And it looks like they're painting with a mouse, which is also quite beautiful, if I had to guess. This doesn't look like a stylus. This looks like a mouse, doesn't it? If I had to guess. Wonderful work. Just awesome. Edition of 3, accepting offers at 13 Tezos, and so bringing in a cool 46 Tezos, so maybe $25. Nice work. Nice piece by 1,000 Lands, Kitchen Cat, AI. So this is an AI artwork here, as you see. So very nice textures here. Nice rendition of a cat. Very cool. Almost having a bit of a woodcut feeling, but also just an AI art piece. Edition of 1 and going to AC 0042 for only $350. Very nice. Here is RJ, Content Creation Fall. So pixel painting GIF based on found social media, 5 frames, 940 by 1250. So cool work. I like this series, but it was troubling to me in the sense that this is based on found social media. So I was thinking to myself, like, if I made a painting based on this and started selling it on the street and then called it based on found digital art and signing it, so I would just put the social media here if someone actually took this photo, a link to the photo at minimum. Other than that, a beautiful work, cool work here. And I love the concept. But I'm curious, whose concept is this? So I'll just say a beautiful piece, cool series from RJ. Content creation is the series. As we saw so I assume these are from social media. So I would just put it this way. If that's your photo, do you want the credit? Just a question there. So anyway, but it looks fabulous, all to say. Let's continue. Venta, planned obsolescence, as we see here. So cool AI artwork here. Actually, I don't know if this is AI artwork. We know Venta does digital painting and sometimes will turn these works into AI artworks. This is just a digital painting. Edition of 1 at auction for 20 Tezos using different brushes, interestingly. So interesting piece here from Venta. And here's Denise. Denise Quirk Maz, Fibrous Nutrition, edition of 1. And here we see some different textures. It's a cool digital painting here. Verging on abstraction here, and different cool colors and everything. So available for 150 Tezos. Here's Lena Eckhart, and I don't know which blockchain this is on. Cool digital abstract work here from Lena Eckhart. I know she's got work on Bitcoin. So maybe it's just being released on X first. This is a stunning work by Santiago, also known as Time. I suspect this is new. I love this background. I love breaking up the work with this kind of solid, gorgeous textured background, which is even different here. This is stunning, actually. So very nice piece here on X from Santiago. Here's Macro Mitrai, edition of 10, Chickle. Looking like playing with JPEG artifacts, perhaps, but I'm not positive on that because they don't look exactly like JPEG artifacts, but they look like a variation, fuzzed out JPEG artifacts. Chickle, edition of 10 for 4 Tezos, and doing quite well, selling 5. So nice work. Again, someone who came on the scene, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 6-7 months ago, and now making sales. So awesome. Rustic Digital Art, who is back on the scene. Vertical Strokes, edition of 10. Very interesting, minimal piece here. Fun piece. A very conceptual artist, but in a very kind of aesthetic and, in a painterly way. You don't need to read the artist statement. Let's put it that way. Selling out at 3:30. So now available on secondary for 10 Tezos. Ashen, who is Santiago Ruao, I believe. New work. So another beautiful abstract work here using, what do we call it here? I guess we'd call that a digital brush potentially here. And it looks like it is all the same brush. So beautiful color here. I assume it could be AI, but I assume this is as it says here, it's a drawing painting by Santiago. So it is not AI. Edition of 1 for 30 Tezos. Beautiful piece. Eleanor Frederick with a fun work here, 86. Not going to leave this on too long because of the flashing, but doing memes and pretty fun piece there. That is available for 27 Tezos and selling out at 10 Tezos. Here's Enki 40, Conformista. Kind of a fun thing to just take the objects in your pocket or that you are wearing and just put them all on and make a drawing. A kind of cultural study of sorts here. Xanax in your pocket, perhaps. Hilarious. Edition of 10 for 5 Tezos. John, Artificial Still Life 42. So a gorgeous work by John here with some butterflies. Kind of a different feeling to this one, isn't it? New work, PNG generated by John Carroll, 108, edition of 108, and still accepting offers at 7 Tezos. Nice work. Here is David Lockhart, who we have heard from, Curb Kids, Devil and Pinky. So kind of a fun work here. Only one minted. We're at 98 cents on Tezos. So cool work here of kids on the phone. A very modern, contemporary topic here. So still available. Cakes 6G getting 1. So 24 days to go. On that one, Cassia Sumi Reyusi back on the scene as well, which is quite exciting, out of Turkey. Interesting painting here, digital art piece with the cat. Nice little photograph in there, in the gallery, seemingly, or in someone's house, with paintings in the background, a classic theme from early Sumi Reyusi, edition of 1 for 1,000 Tezos, available. Here's Uxine, also out of Turkey, and a cool kind of homunculi type figure, or kind of a figure, with a no U-turn. And then down, one of these metaphysical works here, almost on a game board though. Another, what I'd call metaphysical work by Uxine, which you'll see in the early works, a lot of that. Suji, Signal Lost, a fun work of a UFO done pixel art style that has crashed, and maybe some green radioactive sludge or blood from the aliens trailing behind, edition of 10 for 5 Tezos. Great work by Anis Abdin, playing with the medium here. Heatwave, very cool. Very, very cool pixel art work by a master, another master here. Pixel art master, Anis Abdin. Gorgeous work here. Here is eBoy. This is an example of one of the works in FX Hash. Pioneers of pixel art, legendary pull evolved tower number 444. So just an example of one of the works that you can get, that you could have gotten. Ed Wood's Forkit. You know, it's funny with eBoy, very quickly, I was at the cafe 2 days ago, and some guy had eBoy. I'd looked over and I just saw eBoy on his computer. I was like, I didn't mean to look at your screen, but I see eBoy. He's like, I'm just a really big fan of eBoy. I was on Monday. I was exhausted. I should have introduced myself and just, asked more about that person, but I was like, wow, that's amazing. That is so cool. I've heard of eBoy. I have a friend that knows eBoy. Cool. Anyways, Ed Woods, another great work here. Really pushing it here. It looks like a chicken is coming. Oh, no, those are noodles that are being taken out of the soup, but with eyes and a mouth, I believe. And there's soup. Cup and noodles. Love the breaking up of the text here. Much more than a soup. Interesting. All very interesting. Loving this combination of text and image. Edition of 18. Here is Bite by Bit. I Love You. Picked up by Eiley. Beautiful work. Love this piece here. Nice and simple. Nice and simple. PC Paint 3.1. Edition of 1. 25 Tezos. It's sold for. Here's Perfect Loop. Worlds Collide. Edition of 100. And here you'll see Mario combined with a Windows operating system. Nice simple combination here, isn't it? So cool work here. Quite brilliant, actually, in its simplicity. Perfect Loop, edition of 100. And are those sold out? They may be. Mario sells, and it's a brilliant work first and foremost, but it's true, if you put Mario in the work, it's like doing McDonald's, right? It does help. Uncertain Index, number 462, this is by Pixel Fool. So I'm not sure, I guess a new, it looks like a generative work, and you have to, if you hit P, oops, it will pause. Let's see if that works. I might have to put it in advanced mode, which is always a little risky. So let's just leave it here, but it is a interactive work. Maybe I will try it. For the sake of the show, enable advanced mode, but do this with a lot of care. Of course, Pixel Fool, a recognized figure here. So let's see if it works on my computer. Yeah, it does. Pause. G, or I'll try minus. I don't know what's happening. Actually, let's just leave it here. Very cool work from Pixel Fool, and I believe there was a collaborator on there. I apologize. Gons, Ghosts in the Codec. Cool work here, 125 Tezos. Kind of a fun one, animated abstract edition of 1. Here is Bosque Gracias, Mio, Mio, Mio. Some cool works coming from Bosque Gracias. This looks like a combination of physical and digital, if I had to guess. A scanner is a portal. Using the scanner. Very interesting work, edition of 10 and 3 sold, and those all that are listed are sold at 555. Edition of 1 for 77 Tezos. Another interesting piece, I guess using the scanner. Nice move. Very interesting. Look at this. Move, stop, move, don't stop. This is great. This is great. Really working the magic here. Super interesting. Very cool. Bosque Gracias out of Argentina, Ex-Mortal. Above the Noise. So here we see a lot of noise from Ex-Mortal, edition of 13, and sold out again at 1666, so doing fabulously here. Klaus, Composition 512, and here continuing the Composition Geometrically series, edition of 1, selling for 29 Tezos. Awesome. Price rising a little bit there. Nebular, Past Iterations. Kind of a bit of a classical theme in the background there, interestingly. Almost looking like a city in the foreground. Preprocessed Resolved, so Analog Video Glitch, edition of 12. Here is Renki, Owani, Onsen, Owani. So new, it looks like part of the Donald Judd series, doesn't it? So continuing to keep it new here. Amazingly, Renki, edition of 1, and that sold for 33 Tezos. Here is a wonderful work, very cool work by Salawaki. Let's just load her up and see if it plays. Let's see if Salawaki plays this time. Let's see. And there we go. The struggle continues out here. Let's leave it. There we go. Oh. It's kind of a fun one, too. There we go. A very intimate metal concert. I think you got a clue as to what's going on there. So that is an edition of 25, I believe sold out. And so great work there. As we move into the physicals, Die with the Most Likes with a stunning work here. I almost want to call this a breakthrough work. The watercolor working extraordinarily well with the pen work. Almost has a... Who is the artist that does Fear and Loathing? I always forget their name. That artist actually was on Tezos for a bit. But almost along that kind of lines. I mean, it's a great combination, watercolor and pen. It's powerful because you get the very strong contrast. We're back to contrast, as August Ground was mentioning in the comments there. The thin little line with the big, blotchy, kind of random colors. Probably my favorite part is right here, where it bleeds through, right? Oh, but that's not rational. Exactly, it's art. So very cool there. Gregorio Zanardi, Memento Mori. And we discussed what Memento Moris were a long time ago on this program. I'm trying to remember. There's a difference between the Memento Mori and a different kind of work. But it all escapes me. All to say, tobacco. And here, love this. It's almost like a sportscaster. We have them smoking. One cigarette. This is a physical work, one cigarette in the hand, one in this beautifully kind of distorted figure here in the face. The smoke. Gregorio Zanardi continues to deliver here. Amazing physicals. Here it is in on X, the work in progress. I mean, so looking good. Nice work from Gregorio Zanardi. Here is Hermipe, and I believe this is a Rizo. So look at that. Look at this. Is this Rizo? We have to look here. We have to look very quickly here because this is quite something. We'll see if it translates. Risograph printing. Very complicated Rizo here. Fabulous. Fabulous, fabulous. Look at that. Amazing. Work here from Hermipe. Look at that. So it continues to be interesting out there in Japanese pixel art land. Love the gray paper. Love the gray paper. Here's a different color paper. Just fabulous, isn't it? I believe these are all Hermipe. They kind of scream Hermipe. Not positive, but pretty sure. Amazing. Yes, risograph work by Hermipe. Fabulous. Here is, of course, Martin Bruce. Test Drive, one of the paintings. Here is a gorgeous work here. Mafia Race 2, acrylic on canvas. Fabulous. John Mackey art, self-portrait of when I was much younger, but I never had a hat like this, just found on Instagram. Another beautiful painting, John Mackey art. Here's another one by Faye Moore House, another amazing portrait here. I think this is the same artist we saw a J.D. Vance by recently. Look at this. So more fabulous artwork on Instagram. It's Not Gallery posting Grupa Dao, finding another brilliant work here. Look at this artist. I brought up several by this work. Again, found by It's Not Gallery. The cutting edge curators here on Instagram. Look at this work. Just fabulous. And there are others. Look at this. Grupa Dao Choraj, if I had to pronounce it. Mountain Dew sticker on the tap. The tap is pouring on the water. Very edgy work here. Just exciting. Air spray and acrylic, I think is what you call that. 60 by 70. Same artist. Look at the likes. 24,000 likes. I mean, this is brilliant. I was tempted to start the show with this. I mean, this is hilarious. And look at all the likes. I mean, maybe I would have gotten like a crazy amount of views if you start the show with this. 24,000 likes. That is crazy. Hilarious work. Brilliant. Faustius, Stone Speaks First, still upward. So not exactly sure. Kind of looks like collage. And not exactly sure. Maybe some paint. Oh, here it is. Wow. Yeah, it's paint and collage. Seemingly. Or now, is that printed out? I mean, this is quite interesting. This is quite interesting. So another, Sabato was mentioning TikTok. I'm excited about Instagram. Like Instagram and X. So I want to see, that's what I'm curious about. Like if there are artists on TikTok, I would love to see like a link. Because Instagram. And there's something else I wanted to mention actually on that. Because music helps retain people on Instagram, right? Music. So you're starting to see music appear with the image. But I was thinking to myself, it's almost like the accidental rise of an organic art form that is combining sound and image. Sound is being incorporated more and more into image, which is quite interesting. I think it's all a function of people trying to keep the algorithm happy and put some music. But it's actually, again, it's organically, accidentally creating a new form, I would argue, or at least making much more of that form than that was produced before, interestingly. Nathan Pattison art, Valentino. I thought this was beautiful and brilliant. Nice take on the playing cards. Nathan Pattison art, and here's Patrick Kyle. Some more just stunning work. It's endless, the amount of great work on Instagram. So many competent artists out here. Jordan Ferguson, another work here. Just a lot of fun. That is acrylic on canvas, Rambo. Hilarious. Thank you for joining me, my friends. Thank you for the support, and thank you for everything. Until next time, take care.